All right, we are going to find the slope of a line through 2 points without graphing. First thing we should remember is that slope is rise over run. So since we know that slope is rise over run, the next thing we need to recognize is that the rise is vertical, and it's the distance between our y's when we have 2 points. And the run is horizontal, and it is the distance between our x's when we're counting on the graph. So when we are finding the distance between two values, we are finding the difference of those values. And when we find difference, we are subtracting. So when we have 2 points and we know their coordinates, we are going to subtract the y's to find the distance, which will give us our rise. And we will subtract the x's to give us the distance, which will give us our run. So let's look at a couple of points and see if we can find the slope. All right, so here are a couple of points that maybe you don't want to graph. The numbers aren't really large, but maybe it's more than you want to do. And you don't want to count all those spaces. So we're going to find the slope between these 2 points by subtracting the y's for the rise and subtracting the x's for the run. The thing you have to be very careful about is, first of all, making sure you remember which ones are the y's. And I would definitely recommend circling the y's in each of your points just so it really stands out and you don't end up making a mistake because you accidentally write down an x value instead of a y value. The other thing that's really important is you have to choose a point to start with. It does not matter which point you start with, but you have to be consistent. So I'm going to start with this point. And in order to help myself remember that, I'm going to draw some arrows so I remember these are the numbers I'm starting with. So remember, the rise is the distance between the y's. And I said I'm going to start with this point. So I'm going to put 32 minus my other y value, which is 22, in my numerator. That will give me the rise. In the denominator, I have to subtract the x's to find the run. I'm going to start with this x value, negative 18 minus negative 24. The distance between the y's gives me my rise. The distance between my x's gives me my run. In the numerator, we have a nice little subtraction problem. It's just 10. In the denominator, we've got a lot of negatives going on. I like to add the opposite to find subtraction a little bit easier. You might have a different method. However you choose to do it, your answer should be positive 6. Okay, so we can simplify 10 over 6. So let's do that. Both are divisible by 2. That brings us down to 5 over 3. It's equivalent. It's just smaller numbers. I would leave the fraction as 5 over 3 for the slope. It gives us an obvious rise and an obvious run. Whereas if you turn it into a mixed number of 1 2/3, the rise isn't quite as obvious, and you'd have to turn it back to an improper fraction anyway. So hopefully that helps. And I hope that if you have any questions, you let me know. Thanks.